And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. Want to also welcome those tuning in on Facebook, on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. Glad you all could join us for another great episode of our broadcast. And also, I want to say happy Prime Day for you guys joining us on Amazon Live as well. If you guys are new to us and our programming here on Amazon, make sure you guys hit that follow button. You'll see it either here in this corner or down below. Also, you will see some, and I do emphasize some of the books by our next guest. We're excited to welcome back Dr. Velma Bagby to our broadcast today. We're going to talk to Dr. Velma not only about the success of her series that has people talking literally around the country, that being the Catch series, but also she's getting ready to release a brand new book in the series as well that you guys can go ahead and pre-order today. And you all can see it right there. It is The Wrong Catch. She'll Tear Down the House. This is book 4 in the series. You can see I've already got mine pre-ordered, so I'll be ready for the official release date on November the 30th. You can go ahead now and be able to pre-order yours. I'm going to highlight it in the carousel. But before we get to The Wrong Catch, She'll Tear Down the House, we're going to talk to Dr. Velma not only about how this series came about, but what it's been like for her to introduce these characters to the world. Dr. Velma, welcome back to the broadcast.
Thank you, Cyrus. It's a pleasure to be here.
Always a pleasure. Midnight Ace Book Bar. Glad you could be able to join us over there on LinkedIn. She says good afternoon to you, Dr. Velma. And also, we have Jacqueline Cox joining us on Facebook. She says, hey, Mama V, to you. So I want to talk about this experience. We're going to talk about the new book that's available for pre-order right now, Dr. Velma. Yeah. We've had some great conversations about this series. I have the 2 novels here, and I have to stress, the Wrong Catch, the newest book, is the 3rd novel. But you also have another book in this series, which is a nonfiction book, The Homework Basket. So What has it been like for you to see the response to this series?
I was in awe. I really was, because this was my, when you approach an ocean or some water, and before you actually jump in, you dip your toe a little bit just to make sure the temperature is just right. Well, that was what I was experiencing when I wrote the very first novel. I thought that was it. It was going to be just one novel. And as a result, many of the readers expressed that they wanted to hear more read more fish analogies, because I used fish in books 1 and 3. And so I was really excited about the response. So it just encouraged me to write and continue to create. And eventually this became it became what it is today, with 4 books in the series.
And we should say, Dr. Velma, a best-selling series as well. Yes. What was that like for you to see that The Wrong Catch, your newest book, is already a bestseller on Amazon?
Well, thanks to my wonderful publicist and all the support I've been getting from him, you, and all the readers and the exposure I've been getting, it's been amazing. I was shocked, really. I found out by accident about the other bestseller. I really did. I wasn't monitoring it like some people do when the book's release. I wasn't monitoring it. The only one I did that with, just out of curiosity, was The Wrong Catch. And then I discovered book 1 was a bestseller as well.
Yeah. So I want to talk about this because I think this is a great conversation for us to have, Dr. Velma. Oh, and Manswell, hello to you on the Facebook side. Glad you could join us. Carolyn C. is joining us over on Amazon Live. Dr. Velma, she says hello to you as well. I mean, so let's talk about how this all began. You mentioned the fish analogies, right?
Yes.
And we've had, like I said, some really good conversations about this. I mean, this all began because of conversations that you've been able to have, not only with other ladies, but also with your husband. Talk to us about how this whole idea came about.
Well, the whole idea of the fish analogies, first of all, I realized that taking the approach of writing a Christian contemporary book was going to be different for me, because my first book was Christian nonfiction. And I do know that there are some in the Christian community who don't necessarily warm up to fictional stories. Right. But then I recognized the fact that Jesus wrote fictional stories with the parables, over 50 of them. And so that gave me peace about taking the approach. Then the thought came to mind, what item will I use to describe these characters? And I knew that my oldest brother, who was an expert at fishing, so I contacted him, and asked him just simple questions. What are your favorite fish? Tell me, how do you catch them? And in his descriptions, he would tell me their personalities. He would tell me where to fish, how they respond to certain kinds of baits. And all of a sudden, those characters just came to life. Just listening to his descriptions, I knew exactly what character to match with each fish.
Wow. And as we've been talking about in several conversations here, Dr. Velma, of course, in the book we have this father and daughter duo,
Yeah,
Veronica and her father Grayson. Grayson kind of navigating his daughter through some things about herself and
yeah.
relationships. So that kind of is an interesting tie-in to the new book, The Wrong Catch. She'll tear down the house because
Mhm.
up until this point, Dr. Bama, we've talked about, of course, Grayson has in particular, and Veronica, we saw in The Wrong Catch. I'll go
Yes.
ahead and highlight that for our audience joining us on Amazon. We saw them kind of talking to women about what they need to know about relationships.
Yeah.
How did you get to a place where you go from this wrong catch, where you have Grayson and Veronica talking to a group of women about this, to now talking about the wrong catch, she'll tear down the house, that seems to be talking about what men need to know?
Absolutely. This came about from the male readers. Some of my male readers asked, you discussed the wrong catch and concerning the wrong men to date. When are you going to address the catch concerning the wrong women to date? And I
Mhm.
said, you're so true. Not only some of the readers, my husband, and talking with some of the men that he's been working with, all of that came about from those kind of discussions. But I also took some time to interview or collect information from some of those men in terms of what were some of their challenges. And so I built the stories around some of the things they gave me. Actually, in chapter 1, Grayson presents surveys. He says he surveyed the men before they came to the conference, but actually, those were responses from some of the men I talked to. Those
Mm.
are their actual responses concerning the challenges they experienced. Because let me tell you, when I heard one reference, the microwave woman, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
sounds interesting.
Right, right. I love that. We're going to dive more into that, Dr. Bama. Midnight Ace Book Bar says on LinkedIn, I remember my father telling me about the different characteristics of fish. And Jacqueline Cox on Facebook says, as an advanced copy reader, it blew me away. I can't wait for others to experience this book. It made me look in the mirror and want to change me as well. Was that part of the hope as well? So that brings up, Jacqueline brings up an interesting
Mhm,
component of this.
mhm.
Yes, the new book, The Wrong Catch, She'll Tear Down the House, is it probably will get the attention of a lot of guys, Dr. Bama, but is it your hope that it also will have women kind of making sure that they're not fitting some of those characteristics?
All of the books do the same thing, even though the other books 1 and 3 focuses on the wrong men today. There's still a lot of great nuggets that men can use based on how they're described and what the women should be looking for. So it works for both.
Mm.
Except in this particular case, you get to see the other side of this. So even though Grayson is focusing on the wrong women to date, there's a lot of descriptions in there already. Some of my early readers have said, look, I identified myself as the queen bee. So the women are relating to some of the characters. And also it just presents the things that we should be aware of, that we not be like these women. So even though the men will gravitate towards the stories because it explains the type of women these women are in the book, the women
Right.
will also resonate with some of the characters and just recognize what they should not be.
Love that. For those who are just tuning in, you all are watching Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live. It also is Prime Day, and we're celebrating National Book Month this month as well. So all of these things fit in with our guest that we're talking to today, which is best-selling author Dr. Velma Bagby. She's joining us for this segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. We're talking with her about the success of her series, the Catch series. You guys can see the books in the carousel on the Amazon side. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the first book in the series there, The Catch No One Wants. You guys can see it there if you guys are joining us on Amazon. The next book you'll see in the carousel there is The Catch No One Wants, The Homework Basket. Dr. Bam, we're going to talk briefly about that. And then, of course, the third book, The Wrong Catch. I have it here as well. You guys can see it there. And now, of course, she's gearing up for November the 30th, where she'll be releasing the newest book. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys again So make sure you guys can go ahead and pre-order it for yourself. And that is The Wrong Catch. She'll Tear Down the House. As you can see, it officially comes out on November the 30th. You can go ahead and pre-order it now for only $5.99. So to be waiting in your e-reader when it actually releases. So Dr. Velma, you talked about, of course, how the series began, and of course, what this was like for you in writing this type of fiction. Talk to us then about the nonfiction book. How did it fall into why you decided to write it?
The nonfiction book was just a part of my training I'm an ordained minister, as a teacher. I'm a senior in terms of a senior member of the teaching staff in my husband's church. All of that, we were always trained to expound upon the word. In other words, don't insert your opinion, just explain the word. And so as I began writing that very first novel, it was very difficult for me to remove scriptures, to not make references to them. I had to describe those principles in a different way without sounding too preachy. So I couldn't use those things. And as I began to remove them, as the editor was working with me to get that done, I recognized that there was a lot of nuggets that maybe somebody would want to know. What if they wanted to know the reference? What if they wanted to look it up themselves? So that's how the homework basket was born, because at the end of that experience, the father gave his daughter a basket full of tools he wanted her to study and work on in terms of working on herself. And that was the whole focus of the book. Stop worrying about who you should marry. Focus on getting yourself ready for that. And that message has never changed, not even in this new book, because it's telling the men to do the same thing. If you want a ruby, you should be at ruby level. So why aren't you working on yourself to do so? And so the homework basket solves that problem for me. I was able to put not only discussion questions, but put all the references in there that I talked about. And I'm also working on a conference guide that's going to accompany the Wrong Catch, because I have to do the same thing I did with the first book. I'm expounding upon it to add questions concerning book 3, The Wrong Catch. Okay. But I'm also going to be creating, I think in the story I refer to, Grayson refers to a conference packet for the men. And so there will be a book to accompany that as well.
Love that. You mentioned, of course, where some of the ideas came from that Grayson shares with the men. And you mentioned, of course, that being something that was real, that happened. We have to mention, too, for those who don't know, you have been doing discussions as well. You've been a part of these in-person conversations. What has that been like for you to see, not only your book being a part of a topic of conversation, Dr. Velma, but also, of course, the discussions that are being had about relationships and our roles in them?
Well, it has a lot to some of the things you say in your motivational messages in the morning, that you own who you are. You chase after what you believe you've been given. Your assignment is your assignment. Your goal is your goal. It's nobody else's goal. No one's going to achieve it for you. And it's helped me to settle into who I know I have been chosen to be. I am a dating and relationship coach. That's who I've been chosen to be. And for a long time, even though I've been writing and talking about it, I had to embrace that. I had to embrace all that entails. And so the more conversations, I've always loved talking to women and men about dating and relationships as well as marriage, but right. Owning it makes a difference. And you talk about that pretty much in your motivational, encouraging words in the mornings. And that's what I had to do. And all of this has helped me move in that arena. That's who I am. That's who I've been called to be.
Love that. And I totally agree with that. I think, that's one of the biggest issues here, is that we do not talk enough about the things that we know that we want, but also recognize the things that we need to work on. Jacqueline says we tend to be in denial until we see it in black and white and internally recognize our own faults. And it's so easy. And, I stay away from relationship stuff. That's your area, Dr. Velma. But I think I've always found that fascinating, how we, men and women, we all do it, will make everything the other person's fault. It's the other person's fault why this isn't working. It's the other person's fault why I haven't found the right one, or why something did not work out, instead of looking at ourselves
Mm-hmm.
Hello to you, Queenie. Good to be able to see you as well. Dorian, hello to you. Dorian says that is such a powerful message. But Dr. Vilma, talk to us about what you've been able to do here, because you've been able to take fiction and connect it to people's real lives. How does that feel to be able to have made those connections in your work, but also, of course, in these books?
I think it's been wonderful because, again, it's just like Jesus's approach to the parables. He never approached the person with what the scripture says that they were doing wrong, that they needed to fix. He just told the story, weaved it in a way that the person can see themselves in it. Then within his story, he provided a way that they could change, or a redemption plan for them. And then at the end, he didn't hang around and wait for them to make a decision in that moment. He just allowed them to have that time for them to make a decision regarding what they're going to do. And so I'm thankful, because as I hear feedback from the readers, when they can resonate, like the early readers, one resonated with Queen Bee and said that's who she was in her marriage. She didn't know what she was doing. She didn't have any skill sets for the whole thing and was not prepared. And so if the person can do that, then that person can then see in the stories how to change what they're doing incorrectly. In every case, that's what the readers have been saying. I recognize this. I recognize this. I used to be like that. And so when I hear that, that tells me that my job was done well. And that's the whole goal. It's not to be preachy, but at least present the principles so that people can pick up on those.
Love that. Carolyn says on Amazon Live, I was honored to be an advanced reader copy participant. The reference regarding the insect was eye-opening. That gives us a nice teaser as to what we can expect from the newest book. Let's see what we have here on. Lachelle Atkins is on Facebook. She says yes, and then of course Miss Queenie. She says a ministry that tells the truth. And I think, again, this is, not always about what people want to hear. It's not like Grayson was telling Veronica what she wanted to hear.
Yeah.
But it was what she needed to hear. I do think what I love about it, and I think we could all learn from this lesson with Grayson, it's in the way it's presented that matters. Talk to us about that, Dr. Velma, because, yes, these are very important conversations, but sometimes the delivery can turn some people off.
Absolutely.
So what has it been like for you to know that the delivery you've been able to give using these analogies, using these examples, have been reaching people and not condemning people?
Well, I think the approach that I've always used, even when speaking with people, I remember occasions where I spoke with people with very serious, dangerous relationships, very serious, had a child involved, all of that. And it's always important for us to be sensitive to the fact that that person is in that place, not judgmental, not how in the world did you get yourself in this spot, not taking that approach, but just being humble and being present for them. Because sometimes it's not about you to give them a response or an answer. Sometimes it's just hearing the story. Sometimes it's just being a good listener, because having the ability to listen and hear may be something that they never had before. No one to listen to their side of the story. And so I think it's important, after all these years of having these conversations with women, none of these characters are new to me. None of these characters are a surprise to me. None of them were fictitious in a sense that I had to make up this person. These are characters that are very real, that I've met and I've seen. And I've heard the stories of women who've always blamed men. And that's another reason why I'm glad I could respond to the male readers in this new book, because it's not always the man's fault. A lot of it is hers. And that's why the emphasis is always placed back on fixing and making sure you look at the woman in the mirror, that you examine you first. Then you can decide. Because in a recent conversation I had with someone, they were dragging around weights, wondering why this was happening. I said, well, what you need to do is slow down. Because I keep hearing you repeat old experiences. That tells me you haven't let them go yet. And so those are some of the things that we have to be mindful of. And I try to integrate those kinds of stories in these books.
I think it is such an important conversation, Dr. Velma, and that's why I'm so glad to have you on with us. Again, everyone, Dr. Velma Bagby is our guest. Her newest book, The Wrong Catch, She'll Tear Down the House, is being released on November the 30th. You can see the Kindle edition is available now for pre-order. That's a beautiful cover there, as you guys can see the close-up version of it there. Again, award-winning, best-selling author Dr. Velma Bagby has been our guest. Make sure you guys go ahead and one click and be able to pre-order the newest book, The Wrong Catch, She'll Tear Down the House. So it'll be waiting for you on Pub Day. Dr. Velma, always enjoy talking with you. How can our audience stay connected with you?
Oh, I just wanted to mention one thing about the cover. I stole that cover from another publisher. So I'm admitting. But no, I asked her for it and she gave it to me. I said, I really love this. Is the vision I had for this book. Can I have that? And Laquita Parks from Pay Pro V Publishing gifted me that person, that woman. And then my graphic designer completed the rest. So I just have to acknowledge that. And I'm glad you like it because I love it too. Hey, you can reach me. I finally have a living, breathing website. It's at drvelmabagby.com. So feel free to connect with me there. I'm going to have some wonderful free promotions and giveaways as I get closer to that date. I'm a giver, by the way. I love giving gifts. I give things that I like. I'm working on t-shirts and other promotional items. So if you want to be a part of that group that will take advantage of those freebies, make sure you subscribe to my drvelmabagby.com page.
Love that. Hello to you, Melissa Banks. Good to be able to see you over there on Facebook as well. And again, everyone, really great conversation with you, Dr. Velma. So glad to have you and looking forward to our next chat together.
Thanks, Cyrus. Always a pleasure.
Hey, same here. And we thank you, our viewers, for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live. Now, keep in mind, a lot of things are happening right now. I really welcome you guys to make sure on the Amazon side, you guys are following us here as we kind of continue through. We have a couple more hours here of programming here on Amazon Live today for Prime Day. Some more brands I'm going to be working with. Some more conversations are coming up for sure. So make sure you guys hit that follow button either here in this corner or down below. Also, of course, make sure you guys are checking out all the things in the carousel. In this case, everything's around Dr. Velma Bagby's book, The Wrong Catch series. So make sure you guys take advantage of that. Until next time, I'm Cyrus Webb saying thank you so much for being with us. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.